Greetings, friends. If you're a wanderer in nature, you've probably learned over the years that every little glen, hollow, space in the woods contains its own mysteries. Of course, immersed in the world of screens and human-made constructs, well, we can sometimes not see. We can miss the things that are right in front of us. I'm going to share with you something that I missed when I first came to these forests. And this something has since, well, become one of my favorite things in this whole forest. You see this dead log back here? There's a special challenge today. I would invite you, as I introduce you to this dead log, to pay special attention, because while I'm showing you this log, I am going to also show you the secret that has made this not quite as it seems. See if you can spot it before I tell you. This is just the sort of thing that's easy to pass up. It's a dead log. Now, there's some interesting features. I mean, any dead log is going to have a host of other organisms making their homes there. You've probably already spotted the moss. And if you have a very keen eye, you may have also spotted, oh, those little rhizomorphs. Those usually indicate honey mushrooms. Down here is something interesting. See that old wire? That's going to tell us something about the history of this forest. And here we have a little hickory nut. Somebody uses this as a perch when they eat. Why, on this side, there's a hollow under the log. You can see the old tree decaying as it goes off that way. Another branch here that's broken off and is even more decayed because it's laying, well, it's just closer to the ground. So here we have it, a dead log that most people would just walk by. But perhaps you've noticed something special about this tree, because there's this other branch. As we follow it up, we see more decay. But as we follow and we keep going, we discover something very strange. Because up there are branches that look very healthy. And in fact, you may even be able to see buds at the ends of those branches. Yes, and the secret is revealed. This tree is alive. Granted, this would be difficult to tell. A tree needs bark, and what's right underneath the bark to transport nutrients up to those branches that we saw way up there. And as we look here, it sure appears that the bark is not contiguous. It looks pretty decayed. I go onto this side and the same thing. Here maybe, but boy, as I follow that down, that bark sort of peters out. And we just have dead wood, dead bark. Do you remember when we were looking at this wire? Well, there we now see something odd. Well, that doesn't look very decayed there, does it? And as we reach down here, we see, oh, wait a second. That is definitely living. In fact, it's a lifeline that runs from the ground through all of this along the bottom, rises up here. And we can see this living bark that is feeding those upper branches. Maybe you can see now why this butternut is one of my favorite friends in the woods. Every time I walk by, I see a being who is doing something incredible. From a human perspective, we can take lessons on resilience. I've known this tree now for 4 years, and every year leaves come out on top. Despite a lot being stacked against it, despite appearing dead and acting as a dead tree, giving life to all kinds of other creatures and beings, this tree continues to weather storms, high winds, heavy snows, and to live on for another year. In another sense, this tree reminds us not to depend so much on our superficial observations. Our mind looks at so many things. It does this with people, with ideas, with situations. It looks at it, it forms a judgment. It creates a story out of that judgment. And then that story is all that we see. If I had stopped looking at this, because it's clearly a dead log, I would never have taken that second look and noticed that something else was going on here. On yet another level, this tree teaches us something about the strength of trees. A lot of the wood inside is rotted out, but it's created strength in its bark, in those inner layers of wood right underneath the bark. And so it maintains its integrity. Even though it's leaning way out, it somehow continues to not break, even though this can look like it's pretty weak. And more, this little tree is, even though we would consider it very stressed or under duress, out of that duress come these countless gifts. And I'm talking about the parts of its body, the wood that is rotting and giving food and home to countless other beings. And for me, most importantly of all, there's something that isn't conceptual. That when I see this tree, I'm just filled with a feeling of wonder, of connectedness, of feeling aware and alive. To me, this is a beautiful friend because he reminds me of all these things, who fills me with this feeling every time I walk by. What a sweet butternut. Oh, it has the black of the butternut canker that it's infected with, honey mushrooms that are very lethal to trees, 1,000 things that say this should not be, and yet this is. There are no limits. Nature reminds us of that. But this applies to us too. We have this huge potential that is often buried under all the constraints of this world we've created. And that potential is unleashed just through being, presence, being engaged, connected with the people that you're going to encounter today, with the situations you're going to experience, with everything that is part of your consciousness. This is that pure being that transcends everything else that we humans have made and created in life. So I'd urge you today to take at least one moment to separate yourself out from all the worries and concerns of our culture and your life, and to step out into nature and to stop and just look at something and just be there with it. Might be a bird in a tree, a little clump of moss on a dead log, a cloud moving through the sky. All of these things bring us into presence. Share with me in the comments, my friends. I would love to hear if you have ever found something like this in the woods that seems impossible, and what it inspired in you. And certainly, if you take a moment today to just be present in nature, share your experience with me. So much love to you all, my friends. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll talk with you in the comments.